Most of what we call self-care is coping. The trouble is that coping works. It keeps us functioning, comfortable, maybe even calm. It also keeps us at a safe distance from reality, so we never have to pick up the can and look inside it. We just keep kicking it down the road, indefinitely, efficiently, and sometimes with a really good skincare routine. Coping helps us get through hard things. It provides relief and creates space between us and whatever feels overwhelming, painful, uncertain, uncomfortable, or unresolved. Sometimes we genuinely need that when we cannot immediately change what's happening, when we need to be able to get through the day, or when creating some distance is supportive. Coping can be adaptive, but when we build a life around leaving instead of staying, there are real costs to consider. When confronted with a difficult conversation, a feeling we don't want to feel, an uncertainty we can't resolve, a reality we don't particularly like, our nervous system sounds the alarm. Cue coping. We reach for relief. The discomfort softens. We continue functioning. And because the strategy worked, we use it again. What's also happening here is that we are never giving our nervous system the opportunity to discover whether the thing we were avoiding was actually survivable. We never find out what might have happened if we had stayed. So the avoidance becomes self-reinforcing, and we get very efficient at a life organized around not ever finding out. That's the trade-off here. Relief for resolution. More reps for the former, quietly for closes on the latter. We never learned that the conversation was survivable, or that we were capable of handling more than we thought. We get relief in the moment, but remain dependent on the same strategies because the underlying fears and triggers never get updated. And coping can be sneaky. More sophisticated forms of coping don't feel like coping at all. They feel like common sense, productivity, self-improvement, being spiritual, or even like being yourself. Functionally speaking, anything can become a coping strategy if its primary purpose is helping you avoid an experience you don't want to have. This can be hard to see and even harder to admit. At least when you're coping with wine, you know you're coping. When you're using work to cope, you seem responsible. When you're coping with self-improvement, you seem committed to growth. When you're using wellness to cope, you seem like you're taking care of yourself. When you're coping with spirituality, you seem evolved. The danger is not just that these forms of coping are harder to recognize, it's that they often come with stories that tell us we're healing. The self-aware person with the optimized morning routine could be doing the same thing as the person who drinks too much, just with better branding. You can do all the yoga, breathwork, therapy, and retreats and still be organized around the same fears, still avoid the hard conversations, still abandon yourself, still create harm in relationships, and still be held hostage by the same triggers. And the wellness industry isn't helping with this. They've industrialized coping and sold it back to us as self-care. What's actually being marketed to us is relief, sophisticated avoidance with a calm aesthetic, spiritual bypassing with a subscription model. Relief keeps us functional, consuming, productive, and continuously coming back for more. Practices that take the edge off, routines that make the unbearable manageable, optimization that makes you more efficient at avoiding the thing you're actually avoiding, profiting from our perpetual distress, offering no real resolution. All of it deployed in service of never having to open the can. None of these practices are the problem. Yoga, breathwork, meditation, these can be genuinely regulatory. The question is what you're using them for. If it's helping you become more available to your life, that's one thing. If it's helping you escape your life more elegantly, that's another. Coping wearing the costume of transcendence is still coping. It's simply harder to see and therefore harder to question. Most people use the words coping and regulation interchangeably. They're not the same thing. Coping moves you away from an experience. Regulation moves you through it. Unlike coping, which reduces the signal, regulation maintains enough contact with it that something can actually happen. The nervous system completes what it started, the activation gets discharged, the experience gets processed rather than avoided. And when that happens, the nervous system learns something new. That wasn't as bad as I thought. I can handle this. I'm still okay. This is survivable. I'm having a human experience, not a catastrophe. The next time something similar happens, there's less charge and more capacity. More evidence that you can stay with it. More evidence that you're capable of handling reality as it is. This is the difference between relief and resolution. The question isn't whether what you're doing makes you feel better, it's whether you're moving away from something or through it. There's real freedom in this. Freedom from organizing your life around avoidance. Freedom to find out who you are beyond the coped version of yourself. The version that emerges when your energy is no longer consumed by keeping the can closed. There is a cost to choosing relief over resolution, and that cost is freedom. Here's what's actually in the can. You know the job is unsustainable. You know you're not happy. But if you really let that information in, now you have a problem. The conversation you need to have. The relationship you already know isn't working. The loneliness you've been outrunning. The exhaustion you've normalized. The decision you've been postponing. The reality you don't want to face. Sometimes we avoid feelings. Sometimes we avoid knowing. But often we avoid what knowing might require. You keep thinking because thinking delays deciding. You keep processing because processing delays changing. You keep seeking insight because insight delays responsibility. A lot of coping isn't protecting us from distress alone. It's protecting us from the implications of reality, the conversation, the boundary, the decision, the change, the uncertainty. Reality becomes uncomfortable when it starts asking something of us. The nervous system anticipates what contact with reality might cost and concludes, better not look. But when we do look, we usually discover one of two things. Reality is survivable or it is actionable. Sometimes you discover that you can handle it, and sometimes you discover that something needs to change. Both will feel uncomfortable. We spend enormous energy avoiding things we may already be capable of handling. What's in the can is often difficult, but not impossible. It's reality asking something of us. You can postpone the conversation. You can keep the distance. You can keep kicking the can. But the costs don't stop accumulating because your nervous system is afraid. While you're avoiding the conversation, the relationship is degrading. While you're postponing the boundary, the impact is festering. While you're withholding the truth, other people are living inside the confusion. This isn't only about what happens inside you, it's about what happens around you while you're avoiding what needs your attention. Our inner lives do not stay contained. They move into tone, distance, tension, into things that just don't add up. The accommodation that replaced the honest conversation becomes someone else's false sense of where things stand. The anger you won't process requires your whole family to walk on eggshells. You don't get to make reality go away by refusing to look at it. The conversation still exists. The resentment still exists. The loneliness still exists. The impact still exists. You've just lost conscious contact with it. Your nervous system may be trying to protect you. Meanwhile, other people are absorbing the consequences. You intended to keep the peace. Someone else never got the truth. You intended to be supportive. Someone else never got the chance to meet your real limits. What gets buried alive. The relationship is already carrying it. The colleague is already carrying it. The family is already carrying it. We are all interconnected. What we hold and what we refuse to hold doesn't stay ours. The costs don't disappear, they get transferred to the people closest to us. And this is why the goal was never simply to feel better. The question we're sitting with is this: am I becoming more free, or am I simply becoming more relieved? Relief is almost everywhere, but all relief does is change how you feel. Freedom, on the other hand, changes your relationship to what you feel. Relief reduces discomfort. Freedom emerges when you learn to stay with it. That kind of freedom requires contact. It requires finding out in your own body that the thing underneath was survivable. It requires allowing reality to ask something of you. Because freedom was never the absence of discomfort. Freedom is no longer having to organize your life around avoiding it.